Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be doing another deck profile, this time on Yu-Gi-Oh's Rokket or Bullet deck, if you want to go by OCG, but I kind of like the sound of Bullet much better. But I was going to say Rokket. This is a pure Rokket deck, not Dragon Link or whatever people made up, because for anime reasons, I like to have everything how it's built and how it's meant to be played. So this is a pure Rokket deck, and because for anime reasons, I also decided to have every Borrel Dragon in this deck. And overall, I'm just very excited because I've been waiting for quite a long time for some more Rokket support, and especially the Rokket Ritual, which we finally got because we got Cyber's Magician, which is the main protagonist, is Ritual Monster, but the rival never got one until Burst of Destiny, which got me really excited, and I was going like, yay, finally. And that Ritual Monster is pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. It does clog up the deck a little bit, but it's pretty good because it has pretty decent effects. So how this deck runs is basically, originally when it was introduced, you would target your bullets, which I'm going to call it the bullet rockets, where when you target it with a link monster, which of course they load up your link monster, and then their effects activate by destroying themselves, and then whatever effect that they have. And then end phase, if they were destroyed, you can summon another rocket from your deck. That is a different name, and of course, everything will be hard once per turn because that's everything nowadays. But that's the playstyle of the Rokket deck. But with a bunch of stuff, you can do a lot of spam special summons because of course. And it's not really hard to get your 3 Borel Link monsters in a turn. And now with the new Burst of Destiny stuff, you're going to be mixing it in a little bit with some of the Topologic cards because character of the anime also played it with Topologics. So it makes sense, although it doesn't really work too well, I must admit. But personally, I still play this as a more pure Rokket deck and not mixed with the Topologics. But anywho, where is Borrelend Dragon? I've been waiting for Borrelend Dragon for a long time, and Burst of Destiny was a good way to introduce it. But anyway, rant aside, let's begin with the deck. So first off, I'm going to start off with the bullet lineup. So I'm going to go in order of introduction. Magna Rokket Dragon, or Magna Bullet, depending on how you like to say it. So its bullet effect is send 1 monster your opponent controls to the graveyard. Just keep that in mind, it's send. You're going to be using this one most of the time. And just a reminder, it has to be targeted by a link monster to destroy itself to send something. And then end phase, you could special summon another bullet. So that's all the bullet rockets, so just keep that in mind. And then next, Auto Bullet sends a spell or trap. Doesn't come up as much, but it's there just in case. Silver Bullet, which can look at your opponent's extra deck and banish one of them. I run 2 of these because it doesn't really come up too often, and normally it's more of a first turn thing. So that's the only reason why I run 2, but it is a level 4 as well, so it does have its value. Next, Metal Bullet. It destroys everything in a column. And then Shell Bullet, which can destroy every monster in the column and then the 2 monster zones next to it. So basically, just pretend like you have your monster right here, and then there's like an extra monster zone where your monster has, and then like right in front of it, there's another monster, and then the 2 zones next to it. So that's basically what it is. So it's more for mass destructions on monsters, which, let's face it, monsters are more likely to appear on the field. And then finally, I played the Explode Bullet Dragon. Deals both players 2,000 points of damage. I only run this because it's a bullet that is level 7. There are cards that interact with level 7 Dark Dragons, and this is searchable because it's a bullet, which is why I decided to run the 1 copy for the just in case purpose. So that's it for the bullet lineup. Now it's time for like the special summon engines and all that. The main MVP of the deck, you must run it. The 3 Rokket Tracers or Bullet Tracers. So its effect is that once per turn, quick effect, you can destroy 1 other card on the field and then special summon a rocket from your deck. That's one of the reasons why I run Explode Rokket, because that's searchable with this if you don't have another level 7, so that's one of the reasons. So this is just basically your main MVP, special summons everything. In fact, you could just activate a spell card and then just use its effect, destroy the spell card. The spell card effect still activates, meaning you still get the special summon and you still get the effect of the spell card. You just kind of have to like do that weird combo, but you could do that. And it's a level 4 tuner, meaning that if you summon another level 4, you can either do an Exceed play or a Synchro play. It depends on you. And 2 monsters also make 2 links, so yeah, this does everything for you. Next, for a new card, the Rokket Caliber, which is another level 4 tuner. So this one is a new card where you can special summon this card from hand to where link marker points to. Yes, it does special summon itself and does extend plays. I do like that, but just that restriction alone is a little iffy sometimes. But the second effect is actually proven quite useful actually too. So I am thinking about bumping this up to 3 because the second effect is that you can tribute this to special summon one dark dragon or machine from your hand. That machine part is because of cracking dragon, so I'm just letting you know. But that special summon itself is very useful along with the special summon monster from your hand by tributing it has proven very useful, so I am thinking about bumping it up to 3, but it's really there just to extend plays. Also, it is also searchable because it's a rocket, so it's like not too necessary to run 3, but it's up to you. And then next, the Rokket Recharger. It's just there because when a extra deck monster you control is destroyed, you can send it from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon a dark link monster with a different name from your graveyard. It's just there. It could do some recovery plays, especially because you're going to be destroying a lot of stuff. You can essentially combo this to give you back a big boss monster. So it has its uses. And then finally, the last rocket, it will be Rokket Synchron, where when normal summon, that's the only thing I hate about it, you can special summon one level 5 or higher dark dragon monster from your graveyard. This with a level 7 makes a level 8. If you run any other type of engine, you could technically go for a level 6 or something. But overall, you just basically summon Savage Dragon with this, and it does provide some recovery play as well, because it gives you 2 monsters, which can also give you a Link 2. So it does have its uses. The only hindrance is that normal summon, which is the reason why you just reduce it to 1, but it's a very nice combo piece. So now it's time for the rocket support that aren't rockets. First, I run the dual wielder dragon. Yes, that's the original name. So its effect is that you contribute this card to special summon 2 rockets from your graveyard with different names in defense. Keep in mind, their effects are still not negated, so meaning that you can still activate their effects. And believe it or not, I use that effect quite often. And that's also because Rokket Caliber, remember, can attribute itself to special summon a dragon from your hand as dark. What I intend to do sometimes is that if this is my hand, I attribute the Rokket Caliber to special summon this, and then use this effect to bring back 2 cards. And that does extend plays, actually. And I actually found that very useful in many cases. That's why I decided to run this at 2. It can be cloggy because it's a level 8. But because of that one effect, I decided to bump it up to 2. I originally ran 1 because I thought it wasn't going to be that useful, but it actually proved a lot more useful than I thought it would be. But it also has a graveyard effect, which is another reason why I bumped it up to 2, is because you can banish from your graveyard and then search your deck for your heavy trigger or rapid trigger from your deck. So aka, it searches for your fusion or ritual card. That's basically what it is. So I actually found both effects useful. It depends on the scenario too when it comes to searching those cards. But not only that special summons 2 monsters, which does extend plays, just keep that in mind, that actually have proven useful. But the search can also give you a different type of play, and it filters out your deck a little bit. So overall, it's pretty good. Then next, one of the best cards in the deck, but I don't run 3 of because it clogs up. It's Absol Dragon, which if you control Rocket, you can special summon it from hand. That's already pretty useful. But if it's sent to the graveyard, you can search your deck for a Rocket. Also very useful. And one thing I like to do with this is sometimes if this is not in my hand or anything, I sometimes use like a foolish burial and send this to the graveyard and just search for a rocket. The only thing is like running 3 can be kind of cloggy sometimes because you are hindering your rockets in your hand in many cases. And also this does appear quite often based on my experience, even with 2 copies. So all you end up doing is that if you have a second copy in your hand, it kind of hinders it a little bit where you cannot even special summon it. Hence why I decided to run 2 because it's a high level dragon. But overall, this is very good for extended plays, especially that search. That foolish barrel search is very helpful. And it's also a level 7 Dark Dragon. You combo this with a Rokket Synchron, you also get another search out of that too. So you do have quite a good amount of use. I just personally don't run 3 because that could get cloggy. And then, for generic dragons, we always have to run the red eyes, right? Because generic dragons. I actually thought about running the Dragunity Arma Leviathan, which is the new level 10 Dragunity, because you're running dragons, and that could special summon back itself. I thought about running that because that probably comes up a little more often than red eyes, if I'm going to be very honest. But red eyes can still be special summoned by Caliber, so you do have that. And of course, Red Eyes can summon back any dragon, so you could get your big boss monsters back with this. I'm just saying it doesn't really come up at all because I never really draw it, and even when I draw it, I barely even summon it. So technically, you could still take it out. And then finally, Gateway Dragon. I thought about taking one of these out for the caliber. Gateway Dragon can extend plays because first, it can special summon itself if your opponent controls a link monster, comes up sometimes. But also, once per turn, you can special summon a level 4 lower dragon from your hand, which is actually the main reason why I like to do a 2 and 2 split. Because Caliber can only get you a big monster from your hand, and also that big monster can bring back 2. And also because Caliber can only special summon itself when you have a link monster, and it has to point to it too. So it does have that hindrance in comparison to Gateway Dragon. So I like to do the 2 and 2. And finally, to the new Borrel boss monster, the Borrel Dragon. So you summon it with Heavy Trigger, or whatever that new name of the ritual card is, because I'm not going to say it that way. So once per turn, if your opponent would special summon a monster, you can negate that summon and destroy it. And then you can destroy one rocket or itself on the field. Yeah, very nice, because you can negate a special summon now with rockets. Yeah, that's why I like this card. But the main effect is actually really more so the second effect, because that one actually helps out a lot, believe it or not. Because the second effect is that while this card's in your graveyard, you can target one rocket or Borel monster on your graveyard, return that card to your hand, and yes, that includes itself, you can return itself, and then destroy one card from your hand or field. Yeah, you can recover some plays while this card is in your graveyard. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I decided to run this. It's actually not even hard to special summon this, believe it or not, but also it has the graveyard effect where you can do some recovery. There are many cases where I actually decided to play a Foolish Burial card just to send this card to the graveyard and then use its effect to get a monster back. And in some cases, this could basically fix up your draws. So if you're at a situation where you have nothing left and this card is in your graveyard, you draw a card and it's not useful, well, your whole graveyard can be your resource engine. And I actually found that very useful in many cases. But its main effect is also really good, hence why I decided to run this. And it's also a Borel load, so my ruling is that I have to run every of the Borrel Dragons for anime reasons. So that's it for the monster lineup. Now for the spells. I originally ran 3 of these, and I'm still thinking about going back to 3. Boot Sector Launch. So Boot Sector Launch is this main spell card. You can search it through your Link 1, so you do have that, but also it doesn't come up as often as much as I thought it would. It's just more so that I'm thinking to not use the Link 1 as often. But anyway, its effect is that all rockets you control get 300 attack and defense. That doesn't really matter because the main effect is that once per turn you can activate one of these effects. Special summon 2 rockets from your hand with different names and defense. Comes up in your first turn play. But second effect, which comes up for later, is that you can special summon as many rockets from your graveyard with different names equal to the difference of monsters you control and your opponent. So say your opponent controls 3 monsters, you can special summon 3 monsters back if you have 0. If you have 1, then you summon 2 back. Which does offer up some recovery play, but I do actually find it where it doesn't really come up too often, actually. That special summon effect is really good, but you don't really end up using this every single turn. But you do want to see this as soon as you can, which is where the Link 1 comes in. But in some cases where if you literally don't have a field and you really need this card, it can suck. So I'm just saying. But personally, I am still thinking about running 3 of these because you do want to see this as soon as you can. And I want to rely less on the Link 1 because the Link 1 also has the second effect, which can be useful. Next, this is basically your search card and is one of the better ones because it's quick launch. You could special summon any rocket from your deck to the field. Yeah, any rocket, special summon. But you do have to destroy it at the end phase of the turn, but that doesn't even really matter because you're going to just end up using it for link material, or some cases you're going to use it for squid draw, for draw power. There's no reason not to run 3. And like I said with the combo earlier, where you could just summon a Rocket Tracer and then play quick launch, and use Rocket Tracer to destroy the quick launch and still activate both effects. So that gives you 2 monsters. Many things you can do. And then speaking of squid draw, I'm thinking about cutting this down to 1 because you do have to destroy 1 rocket on your field to draw 2 cards. And that's the only thing. You have to destroy 1 to draw 2, which can hinder some plays sometimes. but the draw power is nice, and sometimes it does come up. It's there. If you do have like this extra rocket in some cases, this does actually show up sometimes. It's quite useful, and even if you don't need it, if you have the Riot Dragon in your graveyard, you could exchange this for a different card. So you also have that as well. And another not super necessary card, but can be useful, is Borrel Regenerator, which you could special summon a rocket from your graveyard, and if the rocket was destroyed, you can draw a card. Can combo off with some of your plays, especially it gives you an extra plus, hence why I decided to run this. And then because we are running the ritual monster, you have to run the heavy trigger. I'm going to call it heavy trigger no matter what. So of course you summon your ritual monster with this by destroying or tributing monsters from your hand or field. Yeah, remember the destroy part because your bullets reload at the end phase. So remember that. And the ritual monster you summon cannot be destroyed by battle and is unaffected by monster effects summoned from the extra deck. That actually has proven very useful. Cannot be destroyed by battle, already offers a good enough protection. But the unaffected by monster effects from the extra deck has been proven a lot more useful than I thought it would be. Because, well, for one, yes, a lot of monsters are summoned from the extra deck nowadays. So that's pretty good itself. But also because you have Topologics in this deck. So if you do summon a Topologic, this card can offer that monster protection and you don't lose it. So you have to keep that in mind because Topologics affect your field too, and yes, I do run a Topologic in this deck. And because for anime reasons, I also run the fusion card as well. Rapid Trigger, which destroys materials on your field, and then to do the fusion summon, and then after that, it offers up the extra deck protection as well. Unfortunately, not the monster protection, because it kind of makes sense because the fusion card is a little easier to summon, not requiring the other monster to be in your hand, so kind of understandable. But regardless, depending on scenario, use one of these. And they're also searchable with dual wielder dragon, so adds extra consistency. And speaking of fusion card, I do run Dragomir, because recovery plays the best. For some extra draw power, Allure of Darkness, not super necessary, but it's there. And then Foolish Burial and Dragon Shrine, because in a way this is basically a second search card, because you could send the Absol Router, and then Absol Router will activate its effect to give something to you. Or you could send a Borrel Dragon to use your graveyard as resource. Or you could even send the Dual Wielder Dragon, which has the graveyard effect to help you search for your fusion or ritual card. So you have that. And then finally, for the last card of the main deck, I run the Pot of Avarice because you're sending a lot of stuff to the graveyard, so it's just good to do some recovery play. So that's it for the main deck. Now to the extra deck. Because for anime reasons, I decide to run each of the 3 Borel Link monsters, which all 3 of them have their uses, although less with guard, I will admit. But for anime reasons, I have to run all 3 of them. But anyway, all 3 of them have a protection effect. Load cannot be targeted by monster effects, and that's both players by the way. Sword cannot be destroyed by battle, and Guard cannot be destroyed by card effects. And yes, that has been proven useful to me sometimes. But they also have a second effect where you can target one monster on the field, your opponent cannot activate anything in response to this effect. Load decreases the monster by 500 attack and defense, Sword and Guard switches it to defense. And then their unique effects is that when Load battles a monster, you can take control of the monster to a zone that this card points to. Yeah, that can be nasty. And then destroy that monster at the end phase of the next turn. So your opponent doesn't even get the monster back. Sword is the full offensive one where it shrinks down the monster that it's attacking by half, and then it gains half of its attack. And then also, if you use the switch to defense effect, it can attack again. So this is basically a big ass beater to kill your opponent. Full offensive. Because based on its name. And then Guard's unique effect is that you can send one spell or trap in your spell or trap zone to the graveyard to special summon one destroyed monster during the turn. So each of them have their uses. Guard with less, so I will admit, but Guards cannot be destroyed by card effect has proven quite useful actually. So I do use Guard for that reason. And then the other one's just basically offensive Borrel Dragons. And keep in mind, because this is the main ace monsters for the Rokket deck, by targeting a rocket, their effects will activate, at least your bullets. And then, because we are at Burst of Destiny, I do run the Topologic Zero Borrels. This is because, in my opinion, this is probably the best of the Topologics, because its effect is that it gains 200 attack for each banished card, and yes, the banished zone does actually build up, but also, when a monster is summoned to a zone where a link points to, it could be any link, keep that in mind, banish all cards on the field, and then during the next standby phase, you could special summon back this card. So yeah, it's basically a mass field wipe. But also remember, your fusion monster and ritual monster, if you use the regular fusion card and ritual card, they are protected by this effect because this is summoned from the extra deck. So that has actually come up a few times. Yes, it does provide a mass field nuke, and it's probably my favorite Topologic out of all of them. But also, it's for the new cover card, I must admit. If I wasn't running the new cover card, I wouldn't be running this either. Because the new Link monster is for some reason a Link 3 Borrel Dragon, which is supposed to be a fusion of Topologic Bomber and Borrelode, and for some reason it's one Link lower, but whatever. But first of all, if a Link marker points to this, it cannot be destroyed by card effects. So that's pretty good. You do have some pointing down, so it's not much of an issue. But also it has a second effect where if you use 3 materials to summon this card, when this card attacks, you can destroy all other monsters on the field. That actually has proven useful sometimes, believe it or not, because just one attack nuke everything. Yeah, that could be quite nasty. And in third effect, if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish it along with a 3000 attack point monster on the field to special summon a Topologic from your extra deck or graveyard. That has come up sometimes actually, because in some cases, you would actually rather summon the Topologic, as the Topologic can be proven much more useful, especially Zero Borrels, which is the only Topologic I have. It can nuke the field, so that actually has proven useful sometimes. It doesn't come up often. In fact, you could technically take out the Topologic and Borrel code, or just run the Borrel code for the nuke effect, up to you. But I have found both things useful, especially some recovery plays where your Link 4 doesn't really do much, and you kind of have to rely on the Zero Borrels more. So you do have that. And then, continue off to another Link 3 Burst Shot Dragon. It's just a generic Link 3 you could summon. Once per turn during the damage step, you can negate a card effect. It's there. Also during the main phase, except during the turn it was summoned, you can tribute this card to special summon one Link 2 or lower dragon from your graveyard, along with special summoning a dragon from your hand. It's useful in some cases. It's just a generic Link 3 dragon that's also dark, so that's why I just run it. And then I run Booster Dragon because if things don't go right, you kind of have to rely on it because you can target one monster you control against 500 attack. If it's a bullet effect activates. And then if this Link summon card was destroyed, you can special summon one dragon from your graveyard. It has proven itself to be useful sometimes for that effect, especially to combo off with Quad Borrel Dragon. But it's mainly here just in case something doesn't go right and you're kind of forced to summon this. And for combo, first turn play, Delindrous Dragon. So its effect is that this first one you're not going to activate, because once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controlled that hasn't attacked, destroy, and then your opponent takes damage equal to its attack. That doesn't come up. But what does come up, it's his second effect, where if it's in your graveyard and you special summon a Rokket, you can special summon this card. It's a Link 2, so you special summon a Rokket, it could get a Link 3. And that's one of the reasons why Caliber can be very useful. Because sometimes what I do is that I special summon Caliber to this card where it points to. This only comes up in the first turn usually. And then I would use one other monster with this to summon another monster. And then I use the Caliber to special summon the Dual Wielder Dragon. The Dual Wielder special summons 2 monsters back. And then use Delindrous. So Delindrous has a lot of first turn application, which is why you run it. But because it's a first turn card, you only summon it for that purpose. And then next, I run Twin Triangle Dragon because it does extend your plays. So when Link summon, pay 500 life points and then special summon a level 5 or higher Dark Dragon from your graveyard in defense with its effects negated. So if you summon Absol Router and you use Absol Router as Link material with this, you can still activate Absol Router's effect. So it does enable a search. And this is basically just a play extender. And this is also one of the reasons why I run the Explode Rokket, because it's just in case that if Absol Router doesn't show up or you don't even have dual barrel or something, you can just search your Explode Rokket and then still use that with this. It has that use. And then Borrel Dragon, or Quad Barrel Dragon, depending on how you like to say it. You can discard one card from your hand, destroy one monster on the field. If it happens to be a link monster, you can special summon rockets from your graveyard with different names, depending on how many link markers that monster had. So basically, this is only good against link decks, but in some cases, I summon a booster dragon, and then I summon this, and then use this to destroy the booster dragon so I could get 2 monsters back, along with probably a boss monster from my graveyard with booster dragon's effect. And then with that, you get a link 4 play just like that. Especially because it does restrict you from summoning only link 3s and higher for the rest of the turn. So it has its uses, but it's mainly against those link decks. And in some cases, just a combo with the booster dragon. Doesn't come up too often, but it's there. And finally, because of the ban list, I have to only run the 1 striker dragon because what the hell. But anyway, when link summon, search for your field spell. You run this card for that purpose mainly. But it has a second effect which has proven very useful, where you can target one monster you control, along with 1 card in your graveyard, destroy the monster you control, and then put the monster from your graveyard back to your hand. In fact, this is actually one of the reasons why I run Rokket Recharger, because if Rokket Recharger is in your hand, and you use his effect, you can target itself to destroy itself, and then get the other monster back to your hand, and then you can use Rokket Recharger's effect to get back one of your boss monsters. One of the reasons why I run the Rokket Recharger. And also, the recovery for a rocket has proven useful, and in fact, since this still targets a rocket, you can still use that rocket's effect. Either way, it has its uses. But you mainly do it for the search of field spell because we have quite a good amount of link ones that searches for their main field spells nowadays. And now for the non-link monsters. For no reason whatsoever, I run the 5-headed dragon because big ass beatstick. If Borrelend Dragon was here, this would have been replaced for that because I want my big ass beatstick in the deck. But also, if you decide to run any other fusion card, you can run Star Venom if you want because your Rapid Trigger does destroy 2 materials on the field, which is basically the condition for Star Venom, but if you're playing Dragonmere, you won't be able to summon Star Venom at all. So I'd like to have this just in case, just to mess with my opponent, because this is the last thing that people would expect. And then, so get that out of the way. First for Borrel Furious Dragon. So obviously you're going to be summoning this with Rapid Trigger, in some cases Dragonmere. So its effect is that it's a quick effect where you can target 1 card you control along with 1 card your opponent controls, but destroy both of the targets. Yes, it could be itself, and you don't mind destroying itself, although it kind of gets protected by your fusion card. But anyway, it has a second effect where when it's in your graveyard, you can banish it to special summon 1 Dark Link monster from your graveyard. And yes, it could be at the same turn, so you could just destroy this along with 1 card your opponent controls, and then special summon back a Link monster. Very nice. And then, because you have to run the Savage Dragon, because Savage Dragon is just too good not to run. If you cannot afford the Savage Dragon, because right now it's like $20-something, go ahead and run Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. It's a pretty good alternative, because it's still a dark dragon, so I'm just letting you know. So if you can't afford the Savage Dragon, go ahead and use Scarlet since it's still pretty good. But anyway, its effect is that when you synchro summon this card, you can equip 1 link monster from your graveyard. And then it gets Borel counters equal to the number of link markers it has. This card also gets half the attack of the equipped monster. Most of the time it will be a link 4 or a link 3, so it will be 4,500 attack. Pretty big, beefy beater. But also, it has a hard once per turn effect where once per turn, when your opponent activates a card effect, you could use 1 Borel counter to negate it. Most of the time, you will have like 2 to 4 Borel counters, so you can do multiple negates with this card. Of course, it is a hard once per turn, so people can get around it. Overall, this is just very strong. And finally, because anime reasons, I know people don't really run this, but Borrel X-Charge Dragon. So its effect is that neither player can target this Exceed Summon card with monster effects, so it already has that protection, which is actually not too bad. But the main effect is that you can detach 1 material and then target 1 monster on the field, make it lose 600 attack and defense, and then special summon 1 Borel monster from your graveyard. But for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon any other monster on the field. So yes, that does suck. If you special summon rockets, you cannot reload them at the end phase. But this effect has proven quite useful sometimes because summoning back a Borrel Dragon to take down your opponent can actually kill them. But also, during the end phase of the turn, you do have to banish the Borel monster, but sometimes if you have a Furious Dragon on the field, I intend to destroy that Borrel monster before it gets banished. So you do have that if that happens. Yes, you could run Savage Dragon over this because Savage Dragon is still going to be 2 level 4s most of the time. So go ahead and run another Savage Dragon if you like. But because for anime reasons, I like to run all the Borrel Dragons in my deck. And also because as much as this is not as useful as Savage Dragon, that extra special summon of a monster can actually prove to be more useful because if you're stuck with one monster, that can be nasty sometimes, I'm just saying. So that's it for this deck profile. What do you guys think of it? What other suggestions that you could make for this deck? Like I said before, this is a pure Rokket deck and not a Dragon Link deck, so I'm playing the deck how it's intended to be. But anyway, overall, I've been very excited ever since Burst of Destiny was introduced with the Borrel monsters, and that was from the OCG by the way, because we got the Borrel Ritual monster, which I was going like finally something to rival the Cyber's Magician. I was not expecting Borrel Code to be a Link 3 because I was expecting all the Borrel Dragons to be Link 4 or higher, but overall I can say that Borrel Code and Topologic does not need to be played, but for anime reasons I like to play them. And also, where's Borrelend? I'm still waiting for Borrelend Dragon. This is the perfect time to introduce the Borrelend Dragon to the TCG, and we still do not have Borrelend Dragon. What a disappointment. Hopefully we get it soon from Ghost of the Past because I presume that's where they're going to introduce it. But I've been waiting so long for Borrelend Dragon that this is not even funny anymore because it's almost 2 years now. Yeah, 2 years for a Borrelend Dragon because to me, that's the super big boss that can rival Dark Fluid, and it's just really awkward to see a Dark Fluid, a protagonist evolved monster, but not the evolved version of the rival's main ace monster. Which, by the way, is a 3-headed Borrel Dragon. So in a way, it's the ultimate dragon, Neo Galaxy Eyes. But in that case, it's a fusion of the 3 Borrel Link monsters. But anyway, around aside, still waiting for the Borrelend Dragon. Still very disappointed in that. I hope you enjoyed this. Go ahead and give me other suggestions, what I could pump up, what I could run. And other than that, do not tell me to take out all the other Borrel Dragons because I like to run all of them for anime reasons. And see you all next time.